Julian here, and today I'm going to be talking to you about how to make melodic house synths. So, to go along with this video, I've actually just put out a melodic house mix, so you can check it out. It's on the top of the description. If you like this video and you like melodic house, you will definitely like this mix. So make sure you go check that out and like it and comment and let me know what you think. And yeah, I'm also going to be giving away the project file and samples and MIDI and presets from this video and all that stuff for free in the description, so make sure to check for that. And if you're a patron on my Patreon, check there because it'll be available without a download gate. And yeah, let's get started. So, we're at 123 BPM, this loop you heard in the intro, and the first sound we've got here is this little lead sound, which sounds like this. So the way this was made was using analog. I'll talk about that a little bit in a moment, but first I want to show you the notes. So the notes that are going on here, it's basically this sort of like one bar pattern where it's just kind of like arpeggiating a G sharp minor chord. That's the key we're in, G sharp minor. And you can see, yeah, like the notes here are just G sharp, the root note, B, which is the minor third, D sharp, which is the fifth, and then another B up there, which is just the minor third an octave up. So nothing really too crazy. I've just got this kind of like rhythmic pattern here where you can see it's sort of like jumping, like basically it's a 16th note and then an 8th note, and then it just kind of is like restarting after that. And yeah, it's really not too crazy. Just kind of like playing around with the notes from your root chord. You can pretty much come up with stuff like this pretty easily. So then for the sound on this one, I made it using analog. And what we've got going on here is we've got a saw wave and a square wave, or I guess it's a pulse wave because you can see I've got the pulse width up a little bit. I've got a little bit of detune on the pulse wave there. And then those are going into this low pass filter. And so on the low pass filter, we've got this. You can see I get the frequency there. I've got the resonance up a little bit. And then I have no envelope, but I have an LFO modulating the filter. So this is where kind of like the modulation is kind of like combining with the notes that are being played. If I turn this LFO off, you can hear the lead is like very straightforward. Like it's still got a pretty nice rhythm to it, but it's definitely like a lot more straightforward, a lot less obscure sounding. But when we add this LFO back in, you can hear the movement from that is what's giving it kind of like that interesting sort of rhythm. So it's a really cool way to do this, just having a pattern like this, and then where it's basically like rapid fire. Like there are always notes being played. There's no negative space, so to speak, or no rest or anything like that in here. But then just having that going into a filter with this LFO on there. Like I said, it's a really cool way to create kind of like interesting rhythms and interesting synths with the sound. And you can hear it too, like if you start playing around with the rate on the LFO, you can get like all different kinds of feels. So it's a really interesting way to create sounds. So then after that, I've got the amp envelope just set default. I was going for kind of like a plucky sound, so that is why I did that. And then after that, we just got a bit of vibrato. You can see I've got it at 72%. The rate's up pretty high. Here's without it. And then with it. So you can hear it's pretty subtle. It's just kind of adding a little bit more warble to the sound and making it a little bit more textured and sort of like colorful. After that, we've got a dynamic tube, and the dynamic tube is set like this. We've got the dry wet at like 22%. I got the output up a little bit. It's on the A setting. I've got the drive up a bit. The tone is all the way down, and then we've got a bit of bias. And so what this is doing is it's just kind of like adding more like analog kind of crunch to the sound. There's with the dry wet all the way up. But then I've turned the dry wet down, so we're kind of controlling that. And we're still getting that nice warmth in there. Like if I turn it off, it's not as nice, but then it's just not taking over the whole sound. So then after that, we got a little bit of reverb. You can see I've got a pretty short decay time, not too much dry wet either. That's something that I would say is also pretty important with the style. Like when you have so many sort of like ambient things going on at once like we do here, you really don't want to have too much reverb on any one of them because all the reverb that's playing in the track is combining and it can just get really messy. So that's why I don't have too much on there. Then after that, I've got this Haas effect, and what the Haas effect is doing is kind of making it just a lot wider and making it stand out more in the mix. So here's what the track sounds like with the Haas effect on this lead. And here's what it sounds like without the Haas effect. So you can hear it really, really helps to kind of make this stand out and just put it in its own place in the mix. So if you don't know what the Haas effect is, basically the Haas effect is where you take a sound and split it into the left and the right ear, or the left and right channel, whatever you want to call it. And basically you delay one of them ever so slightly forward. So in this case, I moved the left channel forward a little bit. And by doing this, you create this big stereo image because your brain basically takes in the information that's hearing in each ear and it interprets it as this big wide sound. But really all that it's hearing is just or all that you're hearing, I should say, is just one of the ears being pushed forward ever so slightly. So the way I achieve this here is using this audio effect track. What we've got is we've got two chains. We've got a right chain and then a left chain. You can see the right chain's panned all the way to the right, left chain is panned all the way to the left. And then on the left chain, I've got, it doesn't matter which one you do this on, I just happen to do it on the left here. But yeah, on the left chain, what I've got here is a simple delay. And so the simple delay, I've got the dry wet all the way up, no feedback. The ears are linked because we just want a mono signal. And then I've got it set to 10 milliseconds. So this is how I'm doing the Haas effect. Basically, we're just pushing this one 10 milliseconds forward. And that's what creates it. And so it's a really good way to do this. You could also do this with like track delay. Like in theory, if you wanted to just duplicate this track and pan one to the left, one to the right, and then again, it doesn't matter which ear you do it on, but let's say we just do it on the right ear. We move that 10 milliseconds forward. There you go. You pretty much get the same effect. Like, it doesn't really matter how you do it. It's just this was kind of the simple way for me to do it. Then after that, I've just got a compressor side chaining into the cake, and then I have this EQ8. And with this EQ8, I'm really trying to dial the synth back a little bit. You can hear if I turn it off, it's like very, very in your face. Specifically, like in the low end and like low mid range. So you can see that's what I did here. I'm just kind of cut that out. I've cut out the low end, and then I've cut the low mid range a bit as well. And I've got a little bit of a high boost on there, just to kind of bring it out a little bit more. That is the lead. The next sound we have here is the bass, which sounds like this. So the way I made this bass is actually a lot more simple than that lead. But I'll show you the notes first. It's basically just kind of playing this pattern where it's starting on G sharp. Again, we're in G sharp minor. Then it's going up to B, which is the minor third. And then we're just going to E, which is actually one note up from the fifth, which would be D sharp. But yeah, pretty simple bass line, just kind of like that big sort of like anthemic style chord progression that you have in a lot of these tracks. Like, this is really where the chord progression is happening. So yeah, that's kind of like what that is doing. So then for the sound on this one, I made it using operator. And what we've got here is, you can see, we've just got 4 sine waves doing some FM. They're all in the same key, or in the same chorus pitch. And yeah, you can hear this just kind of gives you like a sine wavy kind of sound, but it's a little bit more like a bass guitar. It's got a little bit more like high harmonic content. And it's just a bit more kind of like audible. So then I've got those going into this low pass filter, which you can see is set like this. I've got a bit of envelope on there, and this is actually really subtle. If I turn it off and then back on again, you can hear it's really just adding like a little bit more of a pluck to the sound. After that, we just got a saturator. I've got the drive up a bit, just kind of beefing it up. And then I just have a compressor side chaining into the cake. And then the last thing we've got on here is just this EQ8. And with this, I'm just cutting out around like 200 hertz. Actually, yeah, like 206 hertz. So there's without it. And then with it, you can hear there was just a lot of like low mid-range happening in the sound, like around that, like that kind of frequency. So I just want to cut that out and make room for this to be more of a bassy sound. So then the last synth that we have here is this little drone pad thing, which sounds like this. So this was made using analog. I made it, basically I'll show you the notes it's playing first. It's just playing G sharp, which is the root note of the key we're in again, and then D sharp, which is the fifth. So it's just kind of a different feel. Usually with this kind of thing, I would either do like just the root, or sometimes like the root and the third. But here I've just got it playing the root note and the fifth. And I feel like it kind of helps to make this feel more almost like intense. Like there's a certain feeling you get from the root note and the fifth and that kind of relationship that they have. And that's what I was going for here. So I made this sound using analog. What we've got is just 2 saw waves, nothing too crazy. Those are going into a bandpass filter. The bandpass filter is being modulated ever so slightly with this LFO1. It's not the same as like how I did it with the lead. You can see I've got the rate unsynced and it's just at a pretty slow time. And we don't have it on a whole lot, so it's just kind of moving it. You kind of hear how the synth feels like it's like moving a little bit. That's what this is doing. If I turn the LFO off, you can hear it's just really staying in one place. But bringing that in there helps to bring it to life. So just kind of make a nice way to give it some more motion. After that, we get the amp envelope set like this. And then I've just got a bit of vibrato. It's at 56% and the rate is at 5 hertz. So it's not like the fastest as you can hear, but it's just helping to add a bit more character and texture to the sound. Then after that, we've got a bit of unison. You can see I've got the detune at like that. And this, as you can hear, is pretty important for the sound. It really makes it sound big and kind of more obscured and less just like a saw wave pad. After that, we just got a bit of reverb. You can see this one, I've got the decay time down a bunch and then I've got the dry wet up. So this kind of goes back to what I was saying with the lead. It's like just kind of making room for there to be reverb in other areas of the track. As opposed to like if I just had this one like super long. You know, it kind of takes over. And I do have the dry wet up a lot on this one. That's just because, I mean, it is still a pad. Like, I still want that kind of reverby texture over it. So, that's what that's doing. After that, I just have a compressor side chaining into the kick, and that's really it for the pad. I also have this kick down here I'll show you briefly. It's just kind of like a punchy sort of kick you would hear in a lot of these style tracks. I've got it tuned, and then I've got this drum bus on here. Just kind of beef it up a little bit. We've got the drive and the crunch, and then I've got the boom up a little bit, and that is tuned to G sharp. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this one. I just want to show you guys how to create some kind of different synths, maybe something a little bit more like obscured and interesting sounding, kind of like this lead and like the pad. And yeah, so I hope you guys enjoyed. So that's it for today, guys. As usual, let me know what you think of this video in the comments. Make sure to like this video as well as subscribe. You can get the project file and samples of MIDI and presets from this video for free in the description, so make sure to check that. And make sure to check out my new Melodic house mix as well. Like I said, that's right at the top of the description. If you like this video, you will probably like it. And yeah, thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you tomorrow with another video.